I'm Jim Tankersley. I cover economics for the Post, and so I'm going to try to keep this as focused on really arcane economic data as possible. No, just kidding. We're gonna have a big talk right now about broadband in communities and how it affects the economy. We've got a great panel. Starting to my right, Scott Grosfield is the Regional Director for the Housing Authority of the Choctaw Nation. David Wade is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of EPB, a city-owned agency in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And Don Williams is a Senior Program Specialist for Broadband at the Commerce Department here in Washington, D.C. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be talking about this, and I want to get you to do a little storytelling for me to start off with, starting with you, Dave. Chattanooga was one of the first cities in the United States to offer the ultra high-speed gig internet, and you did it through a city-owned agency. Why? How did you do it? Why did you decide to do it that way? Tell us your story.
Well, we started off looking at our individual needs as an electric company. We knew that the need for communication for our business was growing, the need for the economic development needs of community access to a high-speed technology such as fiber services would really help our community to be more successful. Is really the drivers behind it, is helping our community to be part of the next century and preparing us for the future.
And how's it worked out so far?
It's worked out extremely well. Chattanooga has really seen a lot of innovation growth. We've seen venture capitalists grow, entrepreneur activity grow, tech companies move to Chattanooga, and larger businesses say that it's what will happen with our smart grid and with our communications is part of their decision to locate in Chattanooga.
Well, I'd like to come back to that in a minute because I'm fascinated by the links between faster speeds and economic activity and would love to drill down on that a little bit more. But I want to ask you, Scott, you all have been beneficiaries of several federal programs to try to expand broadband, right?
This is the actual first. The Connect Home is the first one. That we
so how's it going? Are you getting everything you want?
Nearly.
Okay.
We face a lot of barriers. We have no infrastructure to a lot of our sites. When we say rural, we mean remote.
Oh, yeah, set us the scene. Tell us about Choctaw.
We have 6 affordable rental sites that they target the lower income, and we've got to break the cycle of they can't afford to drive to college. Most colleges are so far away; they're just above the income guidelines to get the Pell Grants for everything you get paid for, but it still costs money. So we have to get them engaged. Our biggest barrier is most of ours we have to have hot spots, have to get good deals from Suddenlink, Vive Broadband, Cherokee Broadband, Pine Cellular. These are all of the stakeholders, and we've got to get good negotiated prices with them because we have to use hot spots, jet packs. We have no T3 lines, T1 lines because these areas are so remote.
So what were speeds like before you started on this program?
Less than 5% of our affordable rental units had any type of Wi-Fi whatsoever.
Wow.
Because a lot of our broadband companies didn't expand in these areas. They are that remote.
And so that held back students in those areas who needed to access online learning.
Absolutely.
So are you starting to see a change?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, 85% of our, and this includes our elder sites as well, 85% of our tenants have smartphones. Less than 20% have devices. A lot of the schools are going to paperless. A lot of the kids do their homework on their parents' smartphones, and you know how hard that is.
Yeah.
So we're trying to partner with our tribal IT because of the devices that are discarded yearly. So if these people complete their digital literacy training, they get a device, we get them connected, they can apply for jobs, they can continue their education, we can break the cycle.
Right.
We need to be self-sustaining. Our Chief Gary Batten, that is his main goal, is to help our people become more sustainable.
Right. So Don, the Obama administration has encouraged cities and municipalities like Chattanooga to go out and find ways to get these sorts of expansions of broadband access. What are the obstacles at the federal level to getting to where you would like to see the whole country be on those goals?
Well, so the obstacles are at the federal level, and they're also at the state level, and sometimes at the local level as well. The Obama administration, during the ARA program, put forward the BTOP program, which I had something to do with, and that was $4.5 billion, mostly in middle mile deployment in unserved and underserved areas in the country. And to harken back to what you said, I mean, in some of the places in tribal areas, we were literally, people were putting in roads in order to get to a point where you could put in the tower. Similarly, in a lot of my jurisdiction, which was in the Deep South, issues were flooding, difficult to put things in. When they were in, it was also another part of the program was to make sure that once you put fiber optics into an area and you got the private sector to buy into your middle mile project, you also had to get people to sign up for the adoption part. So that's been what the administration had done, and then they also did it, of course, with RUS. And most recently, the administration, with their Broadband Opportunity Council, which report was out a couple of weeks ago, that puts forward a number of areas and a number of actual assignments that the executive branch agencies have. And that's going to be involved with making better access available for federal towers in the Department of Interior. There's over 4,000 of those. Also streamlining some of the permitting processes, and also allowing some of the many grant programs to now allow a part of that grant program to go to broadband. So there were situations in the past where you would get a grant for a public housing project, but the money could not be spent to help put a broadband into that. And so those things are now part of this Broadband Opportunity Council, which is what the Department of Agriculture and the Commerce Department are working on at the moment.
And to flip the question to the two of you in local areas, what are the biggest obstacles you will see to getting to where you want to be on access?
One of the issues that faces our community is right now there's restrictions on how far that we can serve outside of our electric system footprint. And there's communities right outside, right adjacent to us, less than a mile off of our system, that have access to nothing but dial-up, that are raising up and saying, why can't you come serve us? And the FCC has actually approved a exemption to that, but it's being challenged in federal court. So, you know, there's significant risk with that until the courts are through, because there's pending legislation in the state level to open those boundaries up. But I think removing boundaries is one of the challenges that we faced.
And how about on your travel end?
It'd be infrastructure. We've received a grant from USDA to bring in some infrastructure. It's not going to be anywhere near what we need. From corner to corner, our service area is over 200 miles, just from corner to corner. And I can't remember what the actual circumference mileage is, but you're talking about if you were to run a T3 line from one corner to our service area, it's 10.5 counties, to the other, it's almost 3.5 million. I don't see the USDA forking over 3.5 million.
Yeah, I don't think they're here with a check today, but
no,
we can try.
Anybody have a blank check?
Right.
I'll take it.
But speaking of money, I mean, we talk a lot about access in sort of these abstract terms, number of people, but talk to me about the economic impacts, and any of you who want to jump in on this. How do we see tangible economic benefits of making these changes?
Sure. So the way that I look at economic impacts is there's a variety of ways to look at it. You have immediate economic impacts in terms of people who are doing the construction work, putting in the software, and that's economic development. You also have a reduction in the costs to the community that are hooking up to it. In the BTOP program, the libraries that we connected and some of the other anchor institutions, the rates that they paid for services declined by 50% in some places, higher in others. And what they got for that was sometimes 100 times the speed, with also, you know, much better latency factors. So all of those things are part of the economic development package. But I think one of the things that we all know is that globally and in our country, we're going to lead by being innovators. And it's very hard to strike innovation without really high speed, good broadband. and that's to make us globally competitive. And it's not just the cost of the broadband. You have spillover effects or external economies that are going to develop every time you've got a broadband system. And I know that's been a blessing in Chattanooga as well.
We recently, Dr. Bento Lobo recently did a study on our community, and he determined that in the 6 years we've been in business, that our communities realized at a minimum of $850 million in value based on the fiber optic investment in infrastructure.
Wow. And how does that break down? That's from companies, from investment, from jobs?
From investments, it's from prevented outages, it's from entrepreneurship activity, it's from a whole plethora of activities.
And can you study and quantify how much of the sort of usage is going to commercial activity versus people watching Netflix?
We can. We don't look at what people are doing on their individual stuff. We choose not to. I guess it's always possible to look at what people are doing with their internet speeds, but we choose not to.
But it's something
really focus on
that companies cite to you as a factor when they start citing in your city.
Absolutely, we see that routinely. We've just recently started one of our local schools, or STEM school, and it's expanding to other schools. Is being taught by a professor on the University of Southern California, teaching a microbiology class, streaming live electron microscoping, allowing the children in Chattanooga to really manipulate the microscope, to watch it in 4K, and it's changing just even the education infrastructure of our community.
You have to invest in the people.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Well, it seems like this is the double-edged sword, right? Broadband opens up all these wonderful new opportunities for distance learning. For you don't have to have that high-powered microscope right there in your backyard for kids to get the benefit of it, but you have to have the access to those classes, and so you need the infrastructure for it. This is the cycle you're trying to break.
Correct.
So how far do you think you are away from being at a satisfactory place for you on that?
Maybe a year. When we're up and running at 100%, probably a year. We're probably about a year away.
And how many students will get those sorts of benefits then?
We're looking at 379 units. I think it's a little over 500 kids,
Wow.
K through 12.
Wow.
I mean, we have just for instance, a 24-year-old at one of our low-income sites that he cannot go to school because he has to work close. He's got to work at the hospital that's close by. Takes care of his ailing mother. He can't go to college.
Right.
And he's bright. Well, this will give him an opportunity. And a lot of kids, they get a lot of their basics out of the way when they're in high school.
Yeah.
Just by doing online courses, or when they're at school or when they're at home, some of the more advantaged kids. We've got to give these other people the same opportunity.
Let's see if there's any questions from Twitter or the crowd. What do we have?
We do have one question from the audience. What are the biggest obstacles facing federal departments when approaching these interdepartmental projects like broadband? I'm guessing that's for Mr. Williams.
That must be for one of you. Well, pretty much the same as any time there's going to be interdepartmental agreements. Sometimes there's silos. There's silos in the private sector and organizations. There's silos in the federal government. This is not news to anybody. But I think one of the benefits of the administration's putting forward the Broadband Opportunity Council was that for months, various cabinet-level departments met and talked about what they're doing now with broadband and how their programs could be changed or slightly altered to make broadband more a part of their program, because I think all of the cabinet-level departments and, of course, the FCC and others totally recognize that a big part of our economy being competitive going forward is based on being innovative, and we cannot be innovative without high-speed, good broadband with low latency. So,
We've got time for one more question, and I just want to ask all three of you about politics. Are there political barriers? Obviously, we talked about your court barriers, but are there things that policymakers could be doing or ways to depoliticize the issue that would be helpful for the efforts you all are undertaking?
No political barriers.
So far, you haven't had any problems with politics. That's
No.
great. I mean,
No,
that's.
I would-
I think I've been moderating panels for years. I've
We
never heard that
haven't
answer
had-
before.
No, we haven't. We really haven't. We've had great representatives on all levels, so we
Yeah.
haven't had any problems yet.
Spectacular. How about in Chattanooga?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest challenge we have is the restriction that restricts our service territory and doesn't allow us to expand to those that need our service.
And how long do you think it will take to get that resolved?
Oh, I don't know. Like I said, the thing that's probably helping more than any is there's so many folks that are speaking up and saying to our local elected officials that we want this access, and asking them to remove those barriers. So I think in the end, they'll listen to their constituents.
And do you see?
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, for the Broadband Opportunities Program and for a number of the other projects with RUS, you know, the federal government is really trying to provide enough capital support initially to service very rural areas. And without that assistance, those rural areas are going to have a hard time catching up and being connected. And in order to be connected to markets at this point in time, no matter what area you're in, you're definitely going to have high-speed broadband. So we found widespread support across both of the aisles because everybody needs broadband, and in areas that don't have it, that are primarily rural, people are very supportive of getting it. So.